The best stories are the ones that don't feel immediately they relate to your brand.
Meet Cari Kaufman, founder of Storyteller Wordsmith and a brand strategist who helps founders cut through the noise and find the real voice.
You're Yoda and your client is Luke Skywalker. They are the hero.
In today's episode, we dive into how to find your unique differentiator, the StoryBrand Framework, and a short live coaching session you can learn so much from. You got the mic, and I'm your client right now.
So the very first question I would ask you is,
with a background in the military and theater, she brings clarity, creativity, and a serious matter to every story she helps shape. If her brand sounds more like a robot than a real person, she's the fix.
the answer is we stand out by
Cari, take me back to a moment when you realized that I'm done with this, I'm starting my own marketing agency.
It was right after COVID, so we had come out of lockdown. It was in 2021. And in 2020, while we were all locked in our homes, I sprung a leak in my brain. I had a CSF, a cranial CSF leak during that time. And so I was literally leaking brain juice out of my nose for 6 months because I had really debilitating headaches and issues. I spent a lot of time on my back just kind of staring at the ceiling because the only way to alleviate the headache was to lay flat. And I think in that time period, I got a lot of opportunity to think about what I wanted out of life and where I was going and what I wanted my daily life to look like. And I just came to this point of like someday maybe never comes. If I continue to wait for someday for all the opportunities to be right and for me to have all of my ducks in a row and for the finances to be the right way, then I just won't, it won't come. I will continue to make excuses. And so it was a really clarifying time in my life, mostly because it was just me and my thoughts for a lot of that. Um, and after I had brain surgery to repair the leak in December of 2020, I had like a 6-week time period of healing. And then it was time for me to start looking at going back to work. And uh, I had worked with several people. I'd come out of a retailtainment company that kind of didn't make it through COVID. And a lot of the folks that we had worked with were looking for copywriting. And I had a gentleman that was trying to hire an internal copywriter, and I applied for the job. And he just looked at me and said, "You can make 3 times the money that you would make if you took this as a job. Hang out your shingle and be your own copywriting business." And so that's where Storyteller Wordsmith started. Was I had a prospective employer who was like, "No, no, I'll hire you as a contractor and you'll make way more money and you'll own your own stuff and like it'll be better." So I took a leap then, became a copywriter. So at the beginning, it was just me, it was just copywriting and content writing. That's all I did. I think I made it 3 months before a StoryBrand certified agency scooped me up and asked me to come on board full time as their copywriter. And I did. And so that is where my business partner and I got kind of our start in content strategy and branding and all of those things. And and so that's where it all started, was laying in bed thinking, if I don't do it now, I won't do it.
It's so interesting how life throws curveballs at us, and when we are in those balancing moments, we realize things that, oh, wait, maybe is something more out there. And instead of sometimes us simply taking time off to not be distracted by screens, by all the tasks that you have to do in a day in order to have these moments of reflection. But this is the life we are living, right? Like we are constantly pushing, constantly having things on our to-do list, and we don't have those empty moments of staring at the ceiling and start figuring out things. But what fascinated me as well is the that interviewer that it's unusual to tell you something like this. Like, why? don't you start your own business and you earn way more and will hire your business as a contractor?
Well, fortunately, I had worked with him at my former company, so I had done work with him. He knew that I think I'm super thankful for him because he knew that I wouldn't be happy just air quotes, just as a copywriter, right? Like he knew that I had this really strong operational background, love digging in and figuring out puzzles and putting those puzzles together. And so I think that that was the part that drove that conversation. We had a personal relationship. He was kind of a mentor of mine already. So I'm glad he stepped out of his role as the CEO of the company and was like, "Okay, well, let me tell you up front, I don't think this is the right job for you." But it was lucky. It was definitely lucky that I was interviewing with someone who knew me, knew my work, knew what I was capable of, and was willing to kind of hold me accountable to that and kind of call me into something higher.
Absolutely. And these are the type of people that are not just visionary, but they're able to see in others sometimes things that we cannot see in ourselves. Like you're more than a copywriter. And I have a similar experience in when a former client told me, like, you're not just a web designer. You're actually a consultant, but you market yourself as a web designer. And these people, we need to be grateful for them because they see in us that something more, that's something else that and probably to focus on one thing. And I think in the world that we're living, where you're more than a specialist, that you're a generalist, but in a certain niche, you have more abilities to adapt yourself, to evolve. And with AI around the corner and actually making things harder for some of us in marketing, it's so important to know more than just one skill. And on that note, because I know that you bring that real human touch into the way you do business, and it's more important than ever now with AI. How do you overcome these challenges that people face in when it comes to their branding, their copy, and so on? When everyone says, "Oh, but I'll just do it with AI," or "I'll just use that tool because it do it faster," and so on.
That's a big question, Gabe. That's a lot of things. There are a lot of different ways that I think that shows up in our work. It does show up, unfortunately, in the purest sense of of the word of like, we have clients that come to us or prospects that come to us and will just plain ask us, "Well, you're gonna charge us X dollars. I can just go to ChatGPT and ask it." Well, anyone who's used AI at all knows that it's not that simple. Like, that it to get a decent outcome out of any AI tool, you have to put in some decent input. And you also have to understand and have an expertise behind you to be able to know what's good and what's not. And ultimately, that's what we typically will sell people on is like, listen, at the end of the day, yeah, you can go put a bunch of prompts in ChatGPT. You can buy a prompt template that everybody else and their brother is putting into ChatGPT and put it in there, and you're going to get exactly what everybody else gets out. So if you want to just blend in, then go do that. And truthfully, people who just want to get the words on the paper or just want to get their brand built and don't really care what that outcome is aren't our ideal client. We're looking for people who really have a passion to get their voice heard, to help their story get heard. And quite frankly, that takes nuance and it takes a person who's willing to sit with you and dig through some of those stories and mine your experiences. And that is what we specialize in. We help our founders can reconnect with some of the stories that they don't understand are connected to the way that they run their business now. We help them use those to develop out their unique voice so that when they start to speak, their tribe, their people resonate with what they're saying. And it automatically creates this magnetism. So that's how we overcome it is one, by looking for the people who care about their story and want it to be, maintained in a really pure way. But we also help people understand that, yeah, sure, you can use AI. I mean, in full disclosure, we use AI in some of our processes. Most of the time we're using it more on the task-based side of the house, and we use it to help us be more efficient so we can be more creative. But, like, at the end of the day, if you put in what everybody else puts in, you're gonna get out what everybody else gets out, and that isn't enough to differentiate you in the market anymore.
Absolutely. And not to mention the fact that all these chatbots are people pleasers. They kind of regurgitate something that the user will like. They'll be able to use it and so on. But as humans, we try to show the other face of the coin. If someone came to us and they say, like, oh, this is the people that I want to serve, this is the result that I want to get, you maybe ask, are you sure that's the case? But AI is not doing that. The AI is putting out there whatever you want and ask for it. But what you mentioned as well, the questions, like it's so important to ask the right questions in these tools. Otherwise, it's so hard to get the results you might want. And I love the fact that you're not a yes person, saying yes to every single person that comes to you. Like, we need help, but we want to use AI and you want to use it in certain ways. So you just want to maybe oversee it and so on. Like, that might not work really well. And I'd like you to break down a bit the process of finding your voice as a brand, because I think it's so important for people to understand how it really works and how really they can stand out, especially now when more and more people, and partly thanks to AI, are starting businesses. They are putting themselves out there, but everyone sounds the same.
Well, I mean, and it comes down to that, like, that's the if your follow-on question was to be, how do we stand out in a world where everyone can now churn out all of this content? The answer is we stand out by being ourselves. Like, when you bring your full humanity to the table, that's not something AI can regurgitate. It's not something it can bring, right? So, we love to work with founders. We love to work with people who have a very strong perspective on what they're doing and why they're doing it. Our ideal client is 100% not the person who will come to us and say, well, I want to sell this widget because I want to make money. And it seems like people need this widget, so I'm going to make this widget. Isn't what we That's not our ideal client. And those people, I can steer them towards other agencies that can help them, but ultimately they aren't the people that we want to work with. We want to work with someone who has a burning desire to do something because they have a very strongly held perspective around it. So a lot of the questions that we ask in the beginning are very much around, what are your strongly held beliefs and perspectives about the industry that you're working in? What I like to ask the question, what chaps your hide? Like, what really, really gets under your skin and makes you mad when you're dealing with people in this industry? My business partner and I have a very clear, like, no template process. We think templates are stupid because people are not templated. So, like, your brand shouldn't be templated either. And that's a very strongly held belief, but it drives all of our work. It drives the unique customer experience that our customers have. It drives how we do the work that we do. It drives how long it takes. So we have based our brand discovery on that, on, like, let's help you mine your experience, mind your perspectives, and help you shape a unique brand and unique voice based on the unique experience that you provide to your customers. And what we find so much of the time is most people, especially founders who are maybe a little bit scared that they're not going to stand out, will try to follow a template. Like, this dude over here is doing X, Y, and Z, and he 10x'd his return this month, and they will try to do something that follows that template when that's not what actually would serve their client best. It doesn't serve them the best. And so a lot of our work is really kind of coaching based in helping people reconnect with the stories and the experiences that got them in the business in the first place, but also to like draw that line through how those strongly held beliefs and perspectives tie back to why and what they're doing in their business. So we really try to help them surface their purpose and their why. And that then helps them get more clarity around who. And I think a lot of people, like, approach it the opposite direction, right? They're like, "I'm going to go after this audience, and I have this why over here that I'll connect to it." But we try to kind of flip that on its head.
Let's make it practical. Imagine that I'm your client or your a prospective client and so on. I'm on a call with you, and we are doing maybe the first session in which you try to extract from me those nuggets that you can use into helping me crystallize my messaging and helping me stand out. You got the mic, and I'm your client right now.
So, the very first question I would ask you is why are you in the industry that you're in? Why are you here?
I arrived here by mistake and a necessity. So I started as a freelancer, and because I got the skills by building my own websites, and those websites got knocked down by algorithm change. And fast forward, I was in the position I need to make money, so I start freelancing, building websites, and so on. After trading time for money for a while, I realized that in order to be successful, I actually need to build a business. So I hire some contractors and start doing at a different level. And after that, I was busy successful, and it was 2019 or something like that, and it was late at night. I was writing on a proposal for about 3 hours and realized that is not the thing that I want to do, like writing custom proposal for every single lead that knocks on my door. And that was a turning point for me. So slowly, slowly, I pivot into consulting, helping people productize their expertise rather than setting one-off projects or similar engagement that once the project is done, the client is gone. So I'm focusing more on keeping client for longer by serving those you can help best. So that's kind of in a nutshell I arrive at this point.
So, what I heard from you was you started out of necessity because you learned a skill. And so you maintained that skill, right? You did something with that skill. But over time, you saw a problem that that you wanted to fix. You fixed it for yourself. So you wanted to fix it for other people. Is that right? Like that was what happened. So my next question to you would be why did you feel the need to fix that problem for other people?
Because fixing that problem for me helped me achieve something that I was striving for many years, which is freedom. And I'm not talking about the kind of freedom that you make money while you sleep, because I think that's but the kind of freedom that allows me, if I have a personal situation in which I cannot be at office that day, I can take a day off. Or if I want to have lunch with my wife, I can do that without asking for permission. Or if I want to live in another place around the globe, I can do that without a problem, without being tied to a certain time zone and so on. So that type of freedom helped me by productizing my service. And I see others struggling with the same, and I feel fulfilled by helping clients, but it's kind of not enough, like I want more. I want to have a bigger impact. The podcasting is part of it, but I know that there is more out there that I can offer to the world. So instead of just helping a dozen of clients a year, I like to be able to impact more people, and that's how all this started. Like both the podcast and as well the consulting part of the business. So it's more about the impact, and my mission is, if you want to put it on a billboard, is to help 10,000 people achieve freedom through entrepreneurship. Not sure if that answers your question.
No, that's perfect. Tell me then, how does your business work? Talk to me about how you help people do that. What are the services that you
So it's quite simple. I'm niche by the solution, not by the problem. Someone comes to me and say, I'm tired of chasing clients. I want to be involved into helping them rather than filling my pipeline all the time. Or I never saw my kids during the day, just late in the evening, and I could not have find half an hour during the day to spend time with my kid or with my wife and so on. So those kind of individuals that struggle with this type of problems, they are trapped into chasing clients all the time rather than helping them. I know that I can help. So once I identify them, so basically the validation process at the beginning, and then once they are validated, we jump on a very brief introductory call in which we know each other and I make sure that I can help by addressing few questions. And once that's set, we usually start with a strategy session, which is split between two calls. And between the two calls, build for them an action plan. And if you are on the same page with that action plan, we engage into a fractional role in which I plug into their own business as a fractional CMO and I help them for at least 10 to 12 months. Without a contract, they can exit at any given moment. And there's a process that we go through from clarity on their audience, productizing their expertise, creating an offer around that, identifying profitable traffic sources, and building marketing assets for their business. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
So I would then start so this is where I would start to ask you, why does it, like, really just get under your skin that folks don't have these services available to them? Like, why does it bug you enough to create a service for them?
Because it bugged me a lot to not be able to have control over my time, right? To stay every single day until the end of the day to work and creating custom solutions, not having a process, not having a framework that is flexible enough. And I know by having discussions, even during the podcast or in DMs or with other prospects, that a lot of people are facing the same thing. And especially those that have like young families that they are not able to spend time with their kids because they're working all the time. And I knew that there is a better way because I found it. And I noticed others doing it as well and simple processes, simple automations, simple things that we can implement in our business can save so much time. And not to mention that if you're focusing on one result, it's much more easier to serve others because rather than helping a niche, for example, and every single client needs a different result or a different outcome out of it. So that's kind of how I came up to this solution and wanted to put it out there because yes, speaking of annoyance, I was annoyed as well, but all the marketing gurus saying the same thing like, oh, I can help you go grow to 7, 8 figures and working just 3 hours a day. While as well I help my clients working less. I never promise that they'll work just few hours a day because that's unrealistic, but they'll for sure save at least 3, 4 hours a day from the current workload they have. So I'd like to ask you how I'm standing out and people say like, oh, this is Gabe, this is his brand, this is not everyone else that are promising different things.
Right. So that's the next part, right? Let's talk about the experiences that drove that decision, that drove you to get here. There's another piece that you kind of mentioned, which I immediately glommed onto because I feel like it probably is driven by a personal experience. But like you said, we typically work 10 to 12 months. There's no contract they can get out of it at any time. So, like, I think that that is it's very telling because typically folks don't put that in place unless they've been burned really badly by a contract or they just think it's wrong, they don't feel right in it, those types of things. So I would like kind of tease those out and then I would start to ask you, this is how you get there, right? Like what's the story? Tell me a story about a time when you felt trapped. Tell me a story about a time when you felt out of control of your personal workload, your family life. Tell me a story about those. And what we get to is like you have personal and and professional stories that drive all of that, right? That drive you in helping you to like see where you could provide a solution that solves your problem. And this is true for most founders. They have a story that drove them to, I got to make this because it really sucked for me. I hated it. I hate to see other people in that. So I can I can actually help people with this. So that's where we start to like kind of tease out those stories. And at the end of the day, that's what stands out for you because you can speak about personal experience, your perspective on things. That's not something that everybody else has. They may have similar perspectives, but they don't have your story. And that is the key to creating a place that, well, a brand that really stands out and resonates with other.
That's what makes us unique, and that's the thing that AI cannot replace, right? Because we have our own stories, we have the way we fix our problem or the way we help someone else fix a problem can help us differentiate. And if anyone is listening now or watching and they're like, but I didn't do anything amazing, I will call it straight away is bullshit, because every single one of us, we achieve something, right? We managed to fix a problem either for us or for our clients or for a random person that we probably never paid us or whatever. And even that, for example, that type of story, like maybe someone helps on goodwill and that put them in a position to see, oh, I'm actually good at this. I'll be able to help others as well. And often I think this uniqueness, this standing out, is less daunting than it seems at first glance. But we're asking the right questions, like the one that you share, I think is super important. And what else would you ask someone that is struggling to maybe to find those stories, like how to look out for them?
Yeah, that's a great question. So first I want to say, yes, 100%, it's not as scary as you think it is. It all of that gold is there. It's in your history, it's in your past, it's in your present, it's right there. Most of the time we don't look at it, we don't see it because we're too busy thinking about the logistics of the business or what is my logo going to look like? How do I get my email newsletter out to the world? Like we're too down in the weeds and we can't see how our story connects. For me, I've always my business name is Storyteller Wordsmith. I own that, right? That's kind of my thing. I've always been a storyteller since I was a little girl. My favorite gift ever was from my great aunt. She gave me a manual typewriter when I was 10 years old. So I wrote my first anthology of poetry when I was 10 years old, bound in a little folder and all the things, right? So it comes very naturally to me to tell stories and to make connections between stories that might not feel related, but they do connect to what I do on the daily. But when I get stuck, I go to people around me. I go to my kids or my husband. And this is how I got started in this whole storytelling space for me was by sitting down with my husband and saying, okay, give me the top 5 stories that I have told you that you absolutely love, that you love to hear me tell, that you love to share with other people. What are those? And I went to my mom, I went to my husband, I went to my business partner, I went to my kids. And that's 6 people. They all gave me 5 stories. So I came away with this little treasure trove of 30 stories. Now, in their own right, by themselves, they're just stories, right? They are stories of, here's a great example. I wrote a LinkedIn post about this recently. A story about karate instructor who I sparred when I was sparring for my black belt, who refused to tap out and I broke his fingers. My daughter's favorite story that I tell, which I think, okay, I don't know exactly what she's getting out of that, but all right, whatever. Other than mom's a badass, maybe that's part of it. But so in the beginning, I don't know that I could take this guy not tapping out and tie it back to some sort of business analogy, right? Well, the more I thought about it, the more I thought about the lessons that I learned in that story. Those lessons fed into the reason why I feel so strongly about being surrounded by people that you trust and about self-trust. And I mean, there were a ton of lessons that I learned in that, but I had to mind them, right? I had to be willing to peel back the layers of the onion for them. But that's where I would start, is ask the people that you care about that are around you a lot of the times, what are their favorite stories that you tell? And start to make a list of those. And then you can take them and tease them out as you go along. I think so many people put pressure on themselves to have a brand story that they tell, and it must be a big brand story and it's got to be related and blah blah blah. And really the best stories are the ones that don't feel immediately like they relate to your brand. Because those are the things that shaped you as a person. They shape your voice and thus shape your brand and how you show up. So that's the first way. The second way is to find someone who can help you mind those, right? Find a mentor or a marketing strategist like me who helps you do that. Find folks that someone in your life who you could tell this story to and get some juice out of. And finally, the easy peasy way to do it is to take your story, put it in ChatGPT, and ask it to draw you a business analogy based on your business. Now, that does not mean that whatever it spits back out at you, you should take and go, oh, this sounds real good. I'll put this over there. You got to look at it and go, okay, does this match up with who I am and what I want to say? And then massage your own personality into it for sure. But if you're really stuck, that's a great way to start.
Yeah, indeed. I love the first one as well because often other individuals that surround us and hear our stories all the time can see those small details that we might miss and unlock something that you have no idea that is there. And once we do that, like once we dig for those stories and we maybe have a full notepad of them, what do you include in the actual brand story that we use in order for others to resonate with it?
So we're a StoryBrand influenced agency. We were StoryBrand certified and cut our teeth on StoryBrand as part of a StoryBrand certified agency. StoryBrand is a marketing framework that was written by Donald Miller. And I love it because StoryBrand is really about taking your client and positioning your client as the hero of your brand story rather than where most people end up is they position themselves as the hero of their brand story. StoryBrand kind of turns that on its head and says, no, no, you're Yoda and your client is Luke Skywalker. They are the hero. You're the guide that guides that hero to their destiny, if you will, right? So we apply that framework to our brand story, how we build brand stories. And a lot of that is just really about digging really deep and sourcing the ideal client profile for that particular brand. We also, because I'm a data junkie, and I think we've run across a lot of founders who thought they knew who their ideal client was. And then when you started to really dig into their brand, you find that, oh, yeah, no, you may want to work with these folks, but that's actually not who you work best with. And so there's a little bit of coaching around who who do you work best with, right? We build out a whole profile of the ideal client, the hero of their story. And then we take their experiences, their unique perspectives, and we apply that to speaking to that ideal client profile. So the brand story itself is really made up of equal parts stakes. So understanding what the main problem point is, but also ultimately being able to speak with empathy and authority to that particular ideal client profile. So that's how we construct it. We utilize the 5 point part framework to build an ideal client profile. And then we take that and construct a brand story that speaks to that hero.
I heard a lot of good things about Donald Miller story brand framework. For those that are not familiar with it, basically break down the steps you follow.
Sure, sure. So the StoryBrand framework is a 5 part framework. so much of the central portion of that is really the identification of the ideal client, right? The hero is your client. So you have a hero who has a problem. So we identify the hero, we create and I create a whole persona. We name them, we talk about their kids, they go to church down the street, 3 doors down, they have a blue house with white shutters. I mean, we truly create a narrative around this person. So, a hero who has a problem. So, that's your pain point. And they need a guide. That's you who shows up with empathy and authority. So, the empathy part is where we go back and we mine your experiences for why are you doing what you do? And then the authority piece is why should they listen to you? What experience do you have that actually gives you the right to guide them? Right? Because if Yoda was 2 months into his Jedi journey and met Luke Skywalker, he might not have had as much impact as Luke as he did, being the ancient one, right? So you have a hero, he has a problem, he meets a guide, that's you, who shows up with empathy and authority. The guide gives the hero a plan. We like to do a 3-part nuts and bolt. This is the way that you should work with me, right? And that is very clear on the website. So if you ever see a StoryBrand website and it has a 3-part plan, book a call, then we do this. This is what happens. That is someone's been encouraged by StoryBrand to like do it that way. So they give the hero a plan and it results in if they choose the plan, it results in success. If they don't choose the plan, it results in a negative outcome. So that's the 5-part framework.
And when it comes to the brand messaging, we should use the negative part as well on our copy, or should avoid that? What's your take?
So yes and yes. Yes, I think it's really important for particularly for folks to understand that you get them. It's important for them to see that you understand their pain, that you understand what they're going through. So we will typically lead with, so if I were to lay out a homepage, for example, the homepage for me, I always like the hero part of the homepage to have an aspirational identity. So the headline of the homepage is typically something about it's active on the part of the hero and it's about what they want, right? But then just below that is the stakes copy, and that's where we poke at the pain. Now, I think that people go way, way overboard with poking at the pain. Like you can like just say, "Hey, poke, poke," and be done with it, and then offer a solution. But there are lots of folks out there that like punching you in the gut with the pain, right? And I don't think that that is necessary. I think there are a lot of ways to sell in your copy and to market yourself without like bludgeoning someone with what they already know is wrong with their life, right? So I do think you should highlight some of the negative aspects because I think there's some proof in that you understand the person that you're talking to, but at the end of the day, most of what you do should be around guiding them to their ultimate goal.
And when it comes to your ideal clients and where they can find you, please tell them what's the ultimate goal you help them achieve and what's the best way to connect with you in order to work with you.
Our ultimate goal is to one, help you solidify your own voice, right? So that you feel comfortable using your own voice. And then help you understand how you can use that across all of your marketing platforms. That's our ultimate goal. At the end of the day, we want our founders to feel like they inhabit their brand, not like their brand is some sort of fake mask of themselves. So that's our goal always. And we do that by empowering you through telling your story. We help you develop your messaging. We help you develop your visual branding. which we didn't get to talk about, but that's equally as important in all of this as the messaging piece. And then finally, if you want to get in touch with us, we are at storytellerwordsmith.com. We offer a free 30-minute quick audit of your website if you're interested in that. We also have a 30-minute brand clarity call. You can book some time with us on our site, and we will sit down with you and kind of talk about what challenges you're having and help you kind of work through those.
Awesome. And for those watching or listening, I'll put Carrie's website down below in the show notes. So make sure to check that out. And I would like to conclude with you creating a challenge for those that are watching and listening. Something that can apply in less than 1 week in order to move the needle in the right direction. And in your case, I would like to be around finding those stories. We already share how to do them, but please create a challenge for them in order to take that first step into digging for them.
Sure. So I do this with a lot of my clients. This is exactly how we start this process. My challenge to you is to go down to your local school supply store, whatever store that might be. I'm in Northwest Arkansas. So for me, it's definitely Walmart. Go to your local store, buy a $1 notebook, one subject notebook, and I want it to have something on it. Mine is a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle notebook. Right. So it needs to be something like just absolutely not professional, absolutely asinine, right? Go buy you a notebook and do that today. And your first challenge is to write down 10 stories that you could tell about your life. Don't classify them as business stories, but classify them as they're just stories about your life. They can be business stories, but they also just don't don't categorize them. And then over the next week, every day, I want you to go into your notebook, start one page for each one of those stories. And every day, I want you to spend 10 minutes on each of those stories, writing down what you remember, writing down what things tasted like, what they sounded like, what music was playing, what things smelled like around you, all of the rich experiential things that happened around that story. I call this your idea garden, and you are watering the seeds of your stories. So that is what you can do today and this week. That's your challenge is 10 stories. Spend 10 minutes a day in your 10 stories, fleshing those out. And then at the end of the week, go back and look at them and pick one to tell a story for you.
Please listen to
Mhm.
Carrie and start this challenge and let us know in the comments down below how that went.